Hello, my friends. I'm Rick, and this is Little Missy. You just can't get enough of me today. Yes, right there. Why don't you get back here? Get up there. You know, you gotta get up there. We're gonna talk about the Anunnaki again, and or the other stories. There are multiple stories. There are multiple sources of stories for the Anunnaki and or gods like them. One of them comes from India, and the and I got I mean, I know a lot of these terms for love of Pete. I can't tell you off the top of my head what the hell they're called. But these are Vimanas. Vimanas are these vast range of skycraft or ships or planes, and depending on what text and what stories you read and what stories you listen to, and the specialists or self-taught specialists or Yahoo armchairs like me who go thinking we know everything and don't know jack, that there are 3 kinds, 4 kinds, 50 kinds, 100 kinds. They're quite a variety. And there's this story that these god beings came to Earth, blah, blah, blah. Then they went to war with each other. There was this conflict of interest, which is interesting because the Book of Enoch mentions similar stuff, and which may be interconnected, because this is from the Hindu antiquity. Mythology and or a whole slew of extremely ancient text from India and the surrounding areas, and that some of these beings were here. They colonized Earth. They came to Earth for a number of different reasons, depending on whose theory you follow. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. What matters would be is that aliens came from outside the solar system and mucked with Earth. Not just Earth, but that it's implied that they were on Mars, possibly the Moon, the black satellite, the great Black Knight satellite up in the polar orbit that's there or not there, depending on which, who says it is, who says it ain't. Dates back to this time, and that great energies were used: beam weapons, missiles, atomic weapons, or something that mimicked atomic. And we talk about nuclear weapons. So these nuclear explosions, this, that, and the other thing takes place. But there are other technologies out there that can mimic that kind of destruction and even leave behind, a irradiated after effect that might, to say at carte blanche that it was nuclear, that it was an atomic weapon, is sloppy at best. We can say it's 95% assumed that, or we believe at 95% accurate that this was, a nuclear bomb site. So if you go to or the southwestern America into the Great Desert area, Badlands areas where our government tested nuclear bombs for 40 years, a long damn time out there, you can go out and see the after effects of some of that. Most of it, not so much. That's like Hiroshima and Nagasaki that got the only 2 atomic bombs dropped on cities in the world in history toward the very end of World War II, which is what helped bring World War II to a conclusion. Did not level the city per se. It didn't make some giant crater in the ground. No, it was an airburst that irradiated everybody, and then the firebomb and the concussion wave that came out of that flattened and burned pretty much everything within a certain radius. Even now, though, those cities are reoccupied. Everything seems to be okay. Right? So sit there and say that something was done by atomics is, I don't know. We're back to that. There's a whole lot of problems in academia today, in my mind, in the scientific field, to the absolute. It's absolutely positive this must be, until it ain't. It's like we keep being forced to revise. The mainstream academia has to keep revising how old human civilization is, because we keep finding evidence of much older civilizations on Earth than what we believe is possible. And many of these can date back tens of thousands of years or hundreds of thousands of years. Now, if you think about it for a minute, the great city of New York, all skyscrapers and stone and rock and people and metal and all the crap that goes with it. What do you think New York, if New York gets destroyed by anything, and everybody else is pretty much, if we're knocked on our back off of our ass and it takes us 5 generations to recover from it, most of our huge cities are going to deteriorate. And all you got to do is watch the series on TV, Life After Humans, to get a good taste of how that happens. And more importantly, just how little time, historically speaking, is required to see all of our endeavors erased from humanity, or from history. Very tiny bits left over. So, the Anunnaki story parallels the story in India where these great god beings who traveled all over the earth and outside of the earth went into conflict with each other. And it's because of their machinisms they were here that created us, and blah blah blah. And then of course there's the the alien connection to it, where they all connect to the Pleiades. And all of these different cultures, ancient cultures around the world, all have this an affinity for the Pleiades. Although I will point out that they must not be the only aliens, and we're kind of convinced that they're not the only aliens, because there's supposedly some that look a lot like us. Some they're reptilian, some are little gray men, and I believe that it was Rick. Beta Auricti, or however it's pronounced, that Bob Lazar says that some of the UFOs that he saw at Area 51 originated from, and that the one he worked on, or got a brief chance to get in and look at, was from an archaeological find. Think about that for just a moment. If these craft were real, and they were hauling ass around and fighting each other, just generally operating thousands and thousands of years ago, at some point they cease functioning. We have junkyards full of our old stuff, and why would these be any different? Ideally, that a most advanced society would create stuff that's extremely, extremely durable, that lasts for eternity, or they're very good at recycling and repurposing everything. They've learned to utilize all resources, and waste in all its form is a resource. It's the truth. We do that now. We scrap the old car. First, we junk the car, which means it's there for parts and people to get stuff off to keep other versions of it running until they fail. And then we scrap it for scrap. And the scrap gets dismantled and then shipped off to, in the case of the metal, to foundries where it's melted down and reintroduced into new metal. So it's repurposed. And so all these ancient cars from the late 1900s to the early 2000s that are rotting away into junkyards, most of them are going to be coming back in 5 or 10 years as your toaster or your new refrigerator, or the aluminum siding on the side, or the metal siding you're putting on your roof. The point is that, or I guess the thing is that the story's broad and wide, and I really enjoyed the idea, but it scares me a little bit too. There's just so much we don't know. And part of it's got to, I think, seriously, it's got to do with that great flood that happens at the end of the Younger Dryas. And Göbekli Tepe, however you want to pronounce it, there's several pillars there that are very explicit as to saying that what happened before will happen again. And I think it's the Vulture Stone that goes on about this. So, people lived there 15,000 years ago, 13,000 years ago. And then they buried the damn site. So either were scared of something, or they knew something was coming, and they wanted to preserve it. And why do they preserve it? It's because they preserved it for us, for future generations to define, and understand, and to act upon. Otherwise, we'd have these guys still flying around in our atmosphere and screwing with our pilots. And, oh, wait. There's all the stuff gets connected. This is when we sit there and about the modern stories of UFOs. Well, they go back to biblical times. They go back as far as historical texts go. There's evidence of flying beings and flying craft in the air. So, I like it. I believe it. I'd like to do a little more depth on it, but I should have had more notes on it, to be honest with you. It's just something that it really intrigues me. And of course, supposedly, have you ever seen some of these temples and buildings that they create over in Southeast Asia and over in India? How extremely elaborate the stonework is on them. I mean, it's implied that this is a replica of an actual flying Vimana or something, or is supposed to resemble one. And I look at some of the detailed stonework that goes into some of these things, and it's insane how much work they put into them. You can look at it from a distance and see just how much labor-intensive detail went into the creation of this thing. And then, other than aesthetics, what was the other reason, right? I forget where I seen it, but there's one very small group of people who believe that these monuments, like this one up here on the top, were created by our ancestors, or perhaps at the direction of the quote Anunnaki, or the quote gods. That the intention is that once we decipher all the crap that's on it, it'll explain to us how to build our own. I don't know if that's true. I just think our ancestors were so freaked out by these flying crafts shooting at each other in the air, and occasionally landing nearby and unloading what God knows what, that they chose to immortalize it as this statue. It's like UFO evidence all over the world. You'll find evidence of ancient text and pre-Egypt cuneiform that defies any kind of translation. Nobody has yet tried to have managed to break the code of this pre-Egyptian language and writings yet. So who knows what, once they do, who knows what kind of will come out. But it is what it is. Till next time, I'm Rick. You're not. Hope you guys have yourself a great weekend. Man, we're on the wrong camera, right? It just irritates me to